It's Memorial Day 2023. We've got a very special flyover planned today and a very special airplane. Check it out.
Number 4, you're in sight. Come on in whenever you want. Number 4.
This is Jim Booth's AT-6A, an aircraft that he's owned for over 30 years, a veteran Reno Air Race racing airplane and pace plane for the Reno National Championship air races. Today, this World War II trainer from 1942 is primarily used for flybys like today's missing man formation flyby on Memorial Day. You always got to be thinking, because if that prop's vertical, it may not clear the top of that hangar. Owning and operating one of these types of airplanes for parade flybys requires a level of dedication and experience not commonly found outside of the military, and is a responsibility that these aircraft owners take very seriously. So today we're going to give you a little behind-the-scenes look of what it takes to put on one of these formation parade flights.
Yeah. Now take a look. Now, stand up there. See the rudder move?
Yeah.
That means it's connected. That pin is installed.
Quick review of the cockpit layout of the AT-6. Let's see. Over here you've got your fuel selector, left reserve, left, right, and off, elevator and rudder trim, landing gear up and down, flaps, wobble pump, fuel pump, carb heat, hydraulic pressure, flap indicator, gear indicators, throttle, mixture, and prop, conventional panel, primer's located over there, master over here, mags on an ignition, on a Cessna style ignition on this particular aircraft, adjustable rudder pedals down there, move those levers and you can adjust the rudder pedals. The seat's totally adjustable, so the aircraft will adjust to any size pilot. Control lock down there, which also locks the tail wheel. Oh yeah, hand hydraulic pump here in case the engine-driven hydraulic pump fails. And this little switch right here is the hydraulic power switch. So in order to engage the hydraulics, you got to first push on that switch, which is on a timer, which gives you hydraulic pressure for enough duration to raise and lower the gear or raise and lower the flaps. And then this switch times itself back up, so the hydraulic pressure is not constantly pressurizing the hydraulic system. It just does a runaround circuit. There's a hot and cold air vent down there in between your legs. Of course, everybody's wearing parachutes on the AT-6 and Nomex. If there's a problem, we're out of here. We'll be taking off with the canopy open just for that occasion. You keep the canopy of the aircraft open for takeoff and landing so that in the event of a crash, you're not trapped inside the aircraft, especially if it ends up upside down. Rear cockpit is a similar layout. This, of course, is where the instructor would be sitting with his limited visibility. The only thing is here is you cannot raise the landing gear from the back seat. even though the landing gear selector is there. Pratt & Whitney 1340 radial engine, 1,340 cubic inches, putting out about 600 horsepower with the Hartzell hydraulic propeller. So you shut this thing down. Hang on, what the Major meant to say was the Hamilton Standard constant speed propeller. And when you shut these engines down, you shut them down in coarse pitch, low RPM condition to move this dome down on the shaft, so to cover the shaft, keep it from corroding. But also, more importantly, when you restart the engine, that drives the oil pressure into the bearings of the engine first before trying to fill the dome of the propeller with oil, thus starving the bearings briefly for oil when starting the engine. This aircraft has a smoke generating system, and that smoke will be emitted right here from the exhaust stack. And it's dramatic. Now let's carefully get strapped into our parachute and our 3-point harness without accidentally pulling the D-ring and walk you through the engine start procedure. Before starting engines checks complete, including pulling the propeller through at least 6 blades to ensure that there is no hydraulic locking of the oil in the bottom cylinders of the radial engine, as oil tends to collect in the bottom of those cylinders as the aircraft sits. There's no electric fuel boost pump on the AT-6, so the pilot hits the wobble pump by hand, pumping up the fuel pressure until he gets an indication, and then he can prime the engine using the primer plunger that we looked at earlier. About 4 or 5 shots of primer. Don't use the throttle to squirt fuel into the carburetor because that can cause an induction fire. So with the throttle cracked, the prop all the way back, and the mixture full rich, master on, engage the starter, allow again about 3, 4, 5 blades to go by, and then turn the mags on to start the engine.
Hello, testing.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. How do you read?
Got you loud and clear.
Okay. Got good oil pressure. Now the prop's coming up.
With the tail wheel locked, and once the oil temperature reaches 40 degrees centigrade, you can begin taxiing the AT-6. But with a 4,000-pound empty weight and a 42-foot wingspan and relatively low to the ground and limited visibility, it's critical that you S-turn while you taxi to avoid hitting anything. A standard before takeoff checklist using the acronym CIGARS works for the AT-6. An engine run-up is conventional, checking the mags, checking the prop at 1700 RPM. Remember, the AT-6 has a single-stage blower, so you'll be seeing manifold pressures higher than ambient pressure.
Man.
Ready to go.
Okay, and your window is cracked, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Because Jim can't see behind him, he wants to make darn sure I got that window cracked open so that I can get out if there's some kind of a problem on takeoff.
And Nevada County Airport, it's North American 2 uniform. I'll be taking off runway 25 at Nevada County with a left crosswind departure. Left crosswind departure.
Final is clear.
Thank you.
Runway is clear.
And 2 uniform is on the roll. Nevada County runway 25. Left crosswind departure.
With the tail wheel locked, we'll start the takeoff roll with setting 2,250 RPM with the propeller and a little less than the full 36 inches of manifold pressure with the throttle.
Okay, there are the brakes, power push, gear coming up. And I always make a little bit of a right turn here when I get some altitude. Back to 30 inches in 2000. And gears up.
Gears up.
Climbing out at 30 inches manifold pressure and 2,000 RPM, the 9-cylinder radial and 2-bladed Hamilton standard prop just creates an incredible amount of vibration, wind, and noise. You can feel the vibration of this all the way into the stick. We climb to the pre-briefed altitude of 5,000 feet, which will put us 500 feet above the formation, which will be orbiting over the predetermined point in a left-hand turn at 120 miles an hour. All of this has been carefully choreographed and rehearsed many times before the mission is flown. And right on time at 11:30 a.m. we spot the rest of the formation over the rendezvous point and descend down to the altitude to perform a rejoin to the number 3 position of the formation. So this is a left-turning rejoin at the pre-briefed 120 miles per hour. We want to drive right up this line using angular cutoff to join lead on his right wing.
Come on in whenever you want. Number 4.
Once we get into position, we kill the last bit of extra energy with a quick turn to the left.
Hi, number 2.
Hi, Jim. Number 3.
And then work our way into the fingertip position. And now the work really begins as you're making constant, tiny corrections on the controls and the power to maintain the perfect formation position.
Still about a half mile closing. And check if you can push it up a little bit. I got only 20 inches here. Okay, I'll push it up 2 inches.
And on the AT-6, you want to put the left-hand flap hinge on the cowling line, and for vertical reference, you just want to see one of the 2 hubcaps of the wheels below the wing.
And Julie, for position, back it up just a hair.
And now number 4, flown by Jim Eberhardt in his AT-6, can fall into the slot position, forming the perfect diamond. And yes, in number 2 position, that's Julie Clark in her T-34, and lead is Chuck Wahl, who has been doing this particular flyby since 2006. He's in charge of all the critical timing and navigation. Now we orbit away from our target far enough to where they cannot see us or hear us and wait for the perfect time to show up with our smoke on in formation at the end of the Star-Spangled Banner. Lead has several timers going off in his aircraft. He's carefully noting the exact amount of time that it's going to take to get to the target, and he's counting down the time to the point at which he needs to be over the target. When those 2 numbers merge, that's when he begins to roll in on the target to show up on time.
A little further forward, just a little bit, number 2. Everybody get ready with your smoke. Smoke on now. Starting a left-hand turn. Smoke off now.
To set up for the missing man formation, we'll now send number 4 from the slot position over to our right wingtip, fingertip 4 position, where we will be the missing man as number 3. And lead will time our arrival to show up right over the target at the conclusion of the chaplain's prayer.
And then he wants me south of 50, so that'll be something we can both watch.
Okay.
How's 4 doing out there?
Doing good. He's a little wide.
I wouldn't expect him to get too, I think he'll be in when we get our inbound leg. Like I say, he's going to have a shit pile of power. He'll probably have 30 inches.
Yeah,
see the smoke over there, so we know at least where we're headed now.
Target area looks clear of traffic.
Okay, thank you.
An important job of the safety observer in the back seat is to observe traffic both visually and using the ADS-B data, as the formation pilot is staring at the aircraft in front of him, maintaining perfect formation position.
Okay, missing man, smoke on now. Missing man, pull now, pull. And Mike, start to turn left.
There's Highway 50 inside. Smoke is looking good. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Okay, I can kill the smoke, I think, now.
Mike, smoke at your discretion. We're clear.